A good Monday morning, a beginning of a new week. This morning I've been thinking about the Lord's Prayer, especially about the petition. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. In other words, we are called to forgive one another. But what does it mean to forgive? Does it mean that we just forget and it's all fine and dandy? Or is it an opportunity to start over? When we are forgiven by God, what does that mean? God allows us to start over, wipes the slate clean, and we can start over brand new. But what does forgiveness look like in life? It's not always easy to forgive people. Sometimes the wounds are so deep. But there are times when forgiveness is definitely the work of God, not something that people have wanted, but God has worked in the lives of people. When I was quite young, my sisters were visiting. Two of my sisters were visiting my eldest sister, her husband, and their little boy. And they were headed home. Well, they took the back roads like they normally would, and they were driving, and here came the neighbor. Well, the neighbor had been sitting up in the local bar all day, and then he went home and he did the milking, and he was headed back into town. And he was driving on the wrong side of the road. My sister pulled over as far as she could without rolling the car down the steep embankment, and he hit her head on with a pickup. And it totaled our car. That was the best car that we had ever had. And the car was destroyed. Both my sisters ended up in the hospital. Well, through the twists of politics and the machinations of the law, which I'll never understand, the gentleman, our neighbor, who drove into them, never even got a ticket. They didn't get his blood tested around until the next day. Nothing happened except that the sheriff the next day drove into our yard and gave my dad a ticket. And my dad had been sitting on the couch. We were watching TV when it happened. So we don't know all that happened, but there was a lot of hard feelings. Well, years passed. And our neighbor ended up going through alcohol dryout, rehabilitation. It wasn't of his own free will. His family committed him. And they moved him off the farm and they moved him onto an acreage right next door to us. One day he drove over. And my dad, they talked throughout the years. I mean, it wasn't as if they wouldn't speak. Well, to make a very long story short, the two of them became very close. And our neighbor would come over and sit and talk to my dad for hours on end. And my dad was able to forgive him for what happened. And a new relationship was formed. And that relationship helped keep our neighbor sober. He stayed sober until the day he died of a sudden heart attack. And my dad made a very dear friend. That is what forgiveness can do. And sometimes there is no doubt that it is God who works the forgiveness, not us. Let us forgive one another as God forgives us. Have a wonderful week, and may God strengthen you and keep you.